Hello aspirants, welcome back to Anthropology Concept Series. So friends, as a part of our Anthropology Concept Series, we have done 5 episodes till now. So in this 6th episode, let's try to have continuity to last episode. So friends, in last episode, we tried to just discuss about the basic aspects related to culture, where we try to understand the basic meaning and basic definitions of culture, and there we further try to understand about the characteristics or attributes of the culture. So that's what we have done in the previous episode. If you happen to watch this video for the first time, then go back and try to watch those episodes, and then you can come back to this so that you can have continuity. So before we proceed with the today's topic, that is culture versus civilization, and the very important topic, that is culture unique to human beings. So let's have a brief recap about what we have learned in the previous things. And before that, myself, Dr. Suresh Sir, and I am the faculty of anthropology at SRIRAM's IAS, and I welcome you all to this session on behalf of SRIRAM's IAS, Delhi as well as Hyderabad channel. So friends, first, this is what we have learned in the previous episode, where we were trying to understand what is culture. So in a very brief manner to say, culture has been etymologically derived from a Latin word that is color. So color basically refers to till, or to cultivate, or to care of, or to care for. So if you see from medieval times point of view, this term, the culture, has been used especially in the context of agriculture. So where agriculture refers to the concept of the process of the cultivation of the soil and the crops, and there later on the term has been taken up in the context of humans, where we started using it for the concept of cultivation of the mind, or cultivation of the manners, or cultivation of the human faculties. So this is where we have just shifted the notion towards the humans. So that's where, friends, culture has been started using in the context of the humans also, and it has been used in the context of the society. So that's where, so cultivation of the manners, cultivation of the kindness, cultivation of the humanity is something that is core in the concept of culture. Is that clear? Now, furthermore, we were trying to just look into the basic definition. So the basic definition was the total way of life of a group of people who are living in a society. It was nothing but the culture. That's how we have learned in the previous episode. And in the same way, so we also try to saw some of the technical definitions given by some of the important scholars. So now if we recap that also quickly so that we can have the continuity. So there we have a definition given by E.B. Taylor. So E.B. Taylor, again, he is a father of cultural anthropology, and he belongs to the British School of Anthropology. So friends, from that point of view, so now how E.B. Taylor defines culture. So look at the terms. So he states that culture is that complex whole which generally includes the knowledge, beliefs, arts, morals, and laws, customs, and any other capabilities and habits that are acquired by man as a member of society. That means being member of society. Human beings will acquire a lot of knowledge, lot of laws, morals, customs, beliefs, and all those things. So all of those things together makes up something that is known as culture. So this is what E.B. Taylor's way. And then further, if you see further things like other definitions we have saw. So they are not like much relevant. So now you just remember this from today's video's perspective, and then let's try to move towards how the culture is different from civilization. Now, when we are talking about culture, we have said that culture basically includes the way of life. That means the way we dress is a part of culture. The way we speak, the language is a part of culture. And the way we conduct our day-to-day affairs, so that is also part of culture. So be it could be food habits, be it could be the dressing styles, be it could be the language, be it could be the religion, be it could be the arts, morals, laws, customs, everything is part and parcel of the culture. Now, how is it different from the civilization? Again, let's go back to the etymological perspective of the word civilization. Now here, the word civilization has been derived from again a Latin word that is civis. So here the term civis basically refers to citizen. So try to remember this. Now from this, if you look from the basic meaning of the term civilization, it originally used or referred to use to say that the condition of living in the cities or the organized communities. So this was the etymological perspective. From this, how we can define civilization means, generally civilization could be said as it's considered as the progressed or advanced stage of the cultural development. So if we take a particular culture keeps on progressing. Say, for example, how does this happen? So if you happen to see that this is on a scale, if you are taking now, if this is how, if you take something that, say, culture, this is the cultural progression. Culture is getting progressed. Now, in this way, so where we can say that it is the time. Now, here, imagine there is culture, this is the progression of the culture. And remember that at one point of time, the culture reaches its peak. And the peak or advanced state where various aspects of the culture reaches to the peak. So that most advanced part, or in a way to say progressed stage of culture, basically refers to civilization. So try to remember this one. That means, now let us try to understand this with one simple example here. Say, for example, if we take one example that, say, for example, the dressing style. So initially, if we talk from the human's point of view, so humans were not covering their body with anything. So there was no usage of the clothes in the initial times. So we do not had any clothes, no clothes. Then from this, we started covering the body with leaves. So the leaves and such kind of things were started to use to cover the body. Then slowly we moved towards some other clothing. And in clothing also, now we have done lot of varieties of the cotton, woolen or polyester. So like this, so we started moving. So here also we started moving from traditional clothing styles or dressing styles to the modern and Western dressing style. So this is where we can say that at one point of time, the culture has reached to its advanced part, or that kind of thing that we call it as civilization. So remember that, that is in a simple fashion we can say. And further, if we talk about the civilization, friends, try to remember this, that so how culture can be differentiated with that of culture, that is where civilization, that is very, very important aspect. So if we look from the culture, so culture is a kind of qualitative phenomena. So qualitative phenomena basically means what? That means we try to define culture from the perspective of the level of development point of view. Say, what about the quality of the dietary practices? What about the quality of the dressing style? What about the quality of something that, say, language? So are we using primitive language, or are we using, say, some standard way of speaking? So that is all part and parcel of the culture. So culture is a qualitative phenomena. So we can just compare it. But civilization is a quantitative phenomena. So try to remember this. This is very, very, very important. Quantitative phenomena means basically most of the material aspects of the culture could be considered as a part of civilization. So that means what we can say here in a very simple fashion to say, so if you have a bicycle and other person has a bike and the next person has a car, then amongst that, so the person who has car would be basically considered as more civilized in terms of the possession of the transportation vehicle with others, the person who is having bike and the person who is having bicycle. So from that point of view, it's quantitative in nature. So how many bikes do you possess, or how many houses do you possess, or what kind of your things that you possess. So that would be spoken by the civilization, the tools, the technology, or that kind of things. So this is where we say it as a civilization. And further, if we talk from the perspective of the basic aspect, so there, let's try to just look at the definition of the civilization so that it will be better understood to you. So there, according to A.W. Green, if we say, so culture, usually it becomes civilization only when it passes some attributes, like say written script. There should be a written script for something that is to call as civilization. And there should be development of philosophy, that's one another thing. And there should be development of technology, that is another important thing. And there should be metallurgy, that usage of metallurgical processes, that should be there. And apart from that, there should be a specialized division of the measure. So all these attributes are features that makes a culture a civilization. Can you able to catch this? That means, say, you take this and try to remember this from the perspective of Harappan culture and Harappan civilization. So when do we call Indus Valley civilization and a particular stage as Indus Valley civilization means at one point of stage, the Harappans, they have developed a kind of written script and they have developed some sort of philosophical aspects in their life. And there, they have developed some of the technology, say water harvesting technology, meticulous water harvesting technology was there. And there, they also were having systematic drainage pattern. And they were having, say, grid pattern of the construction of the cities. So all of these things were a part and parcel of their technology. And then metallurgy, bronze, dancing girl you can have. Or there were so many bronze elements or artifacts can be found from the Harappan civilization. So there, they have developed that metallurgical processes. So that's where we classify Harappan culture or Harappan civilization under the Chalcolithic as well as the Bronze Age. So that is one thing that you should remember. And they also used to have specialized division of measures. So they had that measurement units were there. So this is how, so when a culture becomes civilization when it possesses all of these things. So this is what something that you should remember. Now, in the same way, if you look from anthropological perspective, so remember this, that civilization is the culture at its advanced stage of the development. At a particular stage, tool technology will go advanced, the script and the language will become better, and the technology will be at its peak, and the metallurgical process will be under development. So all those things will mark as the characteristics of the urban life. That means the state of organization also can be seen, and literacy would be evolved, and then technological progress can be seen. So all these things will be witnessed. So this is where you keep these things in to mind also. Now you try to see the differences. So that's how it's a qualitative phenomena, and the civilization would be a quantitative phenomena. So where we try to do it from the perspective of the quantity. Then civilization is metric and it is measurable in nature. What do you mean by this metric or measurable? Just now we have understood that most of the material aspects of the culture would be the part and parcel of civilization. So we can measure them through the number, whereas culture, it is non-metric, it is non-measurable. Say, the dressing style can be perceived through eyes, and we can say that whether it is good or whether it is primitive or whether it is advanced, but we cannot measure it. Say for example, the music, the dance, or these things are also the part of culture. We cannot measure the music, we cannot measure the dance. Rather, what we can do, we can just sense them, we can perceive them, we can enjoy them. So that's where it is non-measurable, a non-metric entity, whereas civilization is a metric and it is a measurable entity. So try to remember this. Furthermore, civilization is more of materialistic in nature. That's what we have discussed earlier also. Whereas it is non-materialistic in nature. So most of the things, dietary practices. So we say vegetarianism, non-vegetarianism. So the physical food is considered under civilization, whereas the practice non-vegetarianism or vegetarianism is considered under culture. So that's what it is, non-materialistic in nature. And then it's basically, it's an end in itself. That means culture is a process which goes on continuously. So in that process of journey, civilization is one measure to end. That means it's a state in that particular culture. So as we have understood this, so it's a state in the culture. Can you able to see that? So that's where we have to remember that it's a part of the culture. And civilization, it's more or less tangible. Tangible means those aspects which you can touch, which you can see, which you can feel. So from all your senses, if you can do, then that is known as civilization. Say for example, if this remote, so I can touch it, I can see it, and I can feel it, and I can sense it. So this is an example for tangible thing. Whereas some things are, say, culture is mostly, it is intangible in nature. And some of the aspects are tangible also. Say for example, dance. We can enjoy the dance performance, but we cannot show it. Now we are speaking. We can't show the language, but what we can do, so we can write it, so we can see it, we can touch the language. Can you able to have that? So this is where, so most of the cultural aspects are intangible in nature and some of them are tangible also. So that's where, in a simple manner to say how we can differentiate between the culture and civilization means, culture describes what we are, whereas civilization explains or says what we have. So this is something that you have to remember. What kind of tool technology you have, what kind of script you have, what kind of philosophy you have, what kind of metallurgical developments that you have, what kind of technological progress that you have with respect to various manners. So that's what would be explained by civilization. So this is where these are the basic differences between the culture and civilization. Is that it clear? I hope this made sense to you. Now friends, in a very simple fashion, at the conclusion we can say that culture is what we are, whereas civilization is what we have. So remember this quote and try to go for an exclusive and for an extensive interpretation of this one. So very, very, very important, and in fact, it has also been asked as an essay question in the UPSC Civil Services examination also. So that's how anthropology also helps you in the writing better essays. So remember this, friends. Furthermore, so just to finish this discussion, so culture includes all these things. It includes the beliefs, it includes the language, it includes the customs, it includes the rituals, the behavior, the faith, the food, and the art, drama, music. Everything is part and parcel of a culture. That's where you should remember. I hope it is clear to you all with respect to the culture. Now friends, the biggest question for the day with us is that, is culture unique to human beings, or do we share this particular entity with other animals as well? This is the question of the day. Now what do you think? Is culture unique to human beings? That means, do humans only possess culture, or any other animals also possess culture? This is the question, and this is the biggest discussion for the day with us. Friends, to answer this, just to go through the images that you can see. Now, here in this image, you can see that humans are painting, or humans are dancing, and humans, generally we as a society, as a group of So some people, so we have a different way of living. So that we call it as culture. But if you look, this is one of the example of say a chimpanzee or orangutan. So here you can say that orangutan is using tools to crack the nuts. That means the orangutan or chimpanzee, it is also using some tools to have its food. Now, can we say that this orangutan or the chimpanzees, they also have a way of life? They are using the nuts and they are grooming the children and all those things. Now, can we say, now you can see these dolphins. Dolphins are using marine sponges to play, and they also teach us their young ones how to play. So, can we say they also has a way of life? Can we say that they also possess the culture? This is the question. Now, let's try to see. Usually, if you see from the traditional anthropological view point of view, friends, is culture unique to human beings? Answer for the question is generally yes. That means traditionally, if you see, culture was long considered as unique to human beings. Why? What was the reason for this argument? Because if you see from the human beings' perspective, so in the entire animal kingdom, only human beings were believed to create some specialized things, like say for example, create, learn and transmit the complex symbolic systems. What are these complex symbolic systems? Think about language. There are n number of languages all over the world, and each language is complex in its own way. And there are so many religions all across the world, and they have different customs, different traditions, different specific way of life in each religion that can be seen. So it's again an example of complex symbolic system. And then laws, arts, dances, so more music. So there are n number of things which are complex things, so which have been systematically developed by humans. So by this, originally, traditionally, the anthropologists, they used to argue that culture is unique to human beings. This was the traditional viewpoint. And they used to believe that animals were thought to live by instinct and not by culture. So whatever they wish to do, they do. That's it. And there is no defined way of life in the animals. So that was the view of traditional anthropologists. Now, what about the current times? What about the modern anthropological and the through ethological findings? How can we say this? Means recent studies showed that some of the non-human primates and some of the animals also exhibited the culture-like behavior. Now, what is this culture-like behavior? Let's have some of the examples. Now, just see chimpanzees. If you see from chimpanzees, generally chimpanzees can use some of the tools. Like say, in this image you can see that a chimpanzee is using a stick to scrape the insects from the tree. Now, this stick is used as a tool to scrape the insects. Now, this is one unique way of using one tool. Now, here you can say that this chimpanzee is teaching these kind of skills to the younger one. That means when we were discussing about culture, culture is learned and culture is shared. Now, this chimpanzee is sharing its cultural trait to the young one, and the young one is acquiring and young one is learning it from the parent. That means, can we again say that this is a part of culture? Further. Now, here, this two pictures, in this picture, you can see that one chimpanzee is grooming another chimpanzee. Like how a mother grooms a child in the humans. That means in chimpanzees, if you say, there are some instances where we can say that chimpanzees use tools like say sticks to fish the termites or stones to crack the nuts. This is one instance where we can say that chimpanzees also use the tools, and further they teach these skills to the young ones. That means learning and transmission of this particular thing. And furthermore, grooming rituals as group specific behavior. So this is also something that we can see. So that is something. And then dolphins, if you see, you can see this dolphin. So dolphin is using marine sponge for foraging activity. that means for eating something. So this is again specific thing, and this thing they will teach to the younger ones, and they will play with the marine sponges. So this is another, we can say that is an instance of the culture like behavior that we can say. And birds, most of the birds you might have saw that birds, like say for example a parrot learns the human language and it also mimics the sound of a language. You might have saw the birds might be singing songs. So this way we can say that. So in a very simple fashion, so some of the animals or some of the non-human primates or some of those things also exhibited the culture like behavior. So all these things we can see, and here you can see that this orangutan or bonobo is breaking a nut by using a stone. So this is how humans also started the culture. Can you able to recollect that? We used to use stones initially to do some of the activities. Stone tool technology. So Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, so lithic stones were being used for as the tools. So this is something that we can have. Now with these examples, now what conclusion that we can bring now? We can come to one conclusion that although animals have culture-like traits, that mean traits, that is use of the tools, traditions, learning and all those things, but only human beings possesses full-fledged culture. Full-fledged culture means with symbolic meaning, with say a culminative growth and a complex social institutions. So with this understanding, we can say that in a simple way, culture is universal. That means culture do exist in the humans, and cultures is also exists among other animals. But what we have to remember is that it is unique to human beings. That means one clarity that we must have is that, say animals also have their own way of life, but this thing cannot be called as pure culture, like human-like culture. Rather we can say that it is culture-like behavior. But one thing that we can say, culture, although it is universal in nature, it is unique to human beings. So this is what we should remember. Can you able to catch this logic? So this is where one of the important thing for us is this, whether culture is unique to human beings or not, means yes, culture is unique to human beings, but culture is universal in nature, which can exist in the other animals also, where particularly they will exhibit the culture like traits or culture like behavior in that context. So that's one thing, that the clarity that you have to keep in mind. So that's one thing you have to remember and you can grasp from today's episode. So friends, that's all for today from my side. So friends, in next episode, let's try to discuss and let's try to proceed with the approaches to analyze the culture. There are two important approaches to analyze the culture. What are they? One is ethnocentrism and other one is cultural relativism. So let's try to understand the most important topics in anthropology from UPSC Civil Services examination point of view, and let's try to have a better understanding of these two topics in next lecture and in next episode. Till then, keep revising all the topics that we have discussed, right? And wait until we come up with the next episode. Thank you all for joining me with this session, and once again, I wish you all the very best in your preparation.